Welcome back to Finances with Uncle Nev. In my previous video, I dealt with someone making $100,000 living comfortably. And at that time, I gave certain guidelines as to what the experts in finance were recommending. So we started off at the $100,000. And as we know, if you are an employee, your employer is required to deduct taxes from your income. So from the $100,000, state and local taxes came to $22,400. That left us with $77,600. And I also discussed two methods, a 50, 30, 20, and a 75, 10, 10, and 5. This is how income would have been broken down, or when I say your outlays, your disbursements. Now, since I chose the 75, 10, 10, and 5, let me recap. 10% represented investments, 10% represented emergency, and 5% was for disposable. That left us with 75% rather, and in dollar amounts, we had $58,200 to spend. So today, what I'm going to do now is go in detail to see exactly how this $58,200 is being spent. And based on my research, what I know is going to happen is that you would spend more than the 58 too. And my mission is to show you exactly how we can get you into the area where you're now investing, having money for disposable, and also a backup in the case of emergency. So let's go to the board. Now that we are at the board, bear in mind that we are working with $58,200 to cover both our needs and our wants. So let's see exactly how these numbers came about. I did significant research. I searched a lot of places to get the best numbers I possibly could based on the fact that we're dealing with 50 states. However, each person's experience is going to be different. But based on my findings, these numbers are going to be plus or minus a little bit. Some might be over, some are going to be under. But at the end of the day, this is as close as possible that we're going to get to. Now, the first thing on this board is rent. We all have to pay rent. And $30,000 came up. That amounts to $2,500. As a matter of fact, if you're living in states on the West Coast or the East Coast, $2,500 amounts to maybe a little efficiency or a small hotel room. So $2,500 does not sound like a whole, it sounds like a whole lot, but in fact it is not. Now, the next one is utilities, and that includes your gas, your propane, your electricity, whatever it is, $1,800. And that in itself is $1,800 divided by 12, and it gives you just about $150 a month. Then we have television, cable, and internet for $2,400. That amounts just to $200 a month. And here comes a big one, subscriptions. We are talking about the Hulus, the Disneys, the Netflix, that sort of thing that we just have to have, you see, in our house to feel comfortable. Then a big one is your vehicle. It could be your lease on the vehicle or your finance on the vehicle. And the numbers were very frightening. As a matter of fact, to lease a vehicle today, a decent vehicle, we are looking at maybe $500. And if we go to finance a vehicle, we're seeing a new vehicle, 80, 90, even $100,000 and more. So I kind of took the middle road. And the number I came up with was to lease the vehicle be about $716, and to finance it would be a little higher. So the $7,200 represents $600 a month. taking an average overall. And then we have gas and maintenance. That number is kind of difficult to actually come up with. But using, again, notes from different sources, $6,500 it was. $1,800 for insurance, food. I only assigned, believe it or not, roughly $60 a month, rather a week. And that in itself is a very low number. However, like I say, the numbers will balance themselves out because some are a little high, others are low. They will average themselves out. Student loan comes in at a pregnant $6,000, and that you cannot escape from. Credit card debt, $4,000. Health insurance, $6,000. Medication and copays, again, it depends upon the type of insurance you have. $2,000. Child care, a big one. You're going from state to state to state, and even in the state of Washington, D.C., and it's not a state, but it's Washington, D.C., people are paying up to $24,000 a year. However, when you go into the states where the cost of living is much lower, you can see why I came up with $15,000. So take that with a little grain of salt there. If you have a pet, it's very expensive to own a pet now. Not only do you have to naturally feed the pet, but you have to take the pet to the doctor. And if the pet gets sick, they may have to do surgery, and the numbers can go through the roof. Pets are just like us, they have organs just like us. So, believe it or not, they have the same kind of maladies or illnesses like we do. That in itself was kind of a low number. So, let's go to road meals over here. Here I have $2,600. And you might ask, what are road meals? Well, it's very simple. You see folks walking into the office in the morning, a large cup of coffee with a brand name, on the container. And it's costing them three, four, $5 a pop. When they're going back home, they do the same thing. And during the lunch hour, they might step outside to do it again. That number definitely gets higher and higher because people get addicted to this process. $2,600 for all practical purposes is kind of low, but that's okay for the time being. This is just an illustration. The next thing on the board is smoking. Not everybody smokes, but I put it there for a reason. If you notice, there's an asterisk over here, and I'll tell you what it's all about later on. So it comes in at $3,650. Next item is personal care. And the numbers for personal care between a female and a male will differ only because it's more expensive for women, for example, to go to the hair salon where by a man just get a haircut. It might cost him $25 or $30 maximum. A woman's getting your hair done, $150, and they have to do it more often. So this number here is very tricky to work with, the $3,000, but you can understand where I'm coming from. Plus, there are other things we all have to do. Entertainment. And especially when we end the day, a lot of people seem to think, let's go and do the after hour activity. This is when we and our friends get together, or some of us, and we have a couple of beers, we laugh, we chat, we watch.
Chelsea, you're having a laugh, aren't you?
Whoa! I'll put money on it if you like.
No, I've already got a pony on Liverpool, so I probably won't see that again.
Nah. Dan, Mars, Dan.
Nice to meet you, son.
You want a drink, boys? We'll get this. No, it's on me. Whatever these boys are having.
Watch the game, whatever it is, that my friend can add. Not to mention, some folks might say, after they've had a drink or two, I'll buy a run for everybody. But that's your number right here, entertainment. Out twice a month. And that, for all practical purposes, is a very, very, very low number because folks who do eat out, they tend to eat out at least once a week. But I am factoring the fact that not everybody likes to eat out. So, thus, that low number. And of course, since this board cannot carry Everything that we would be spending on miscellaneous picks up $6,500. Now, when we add all of this together, in the black, in the red, we'd have spent $113, 650. Now, let's go back here. There are a couple of items where we have asterisks. We have childcare, we have pet food and insurance, and we have smoking. Not everybody will have these expenses. Not everybody has a child. Not everybody has a pet. Not everybody smokes. So I've backed these numbers out. In other words, deducted these numbers from the 113,650. You're down now to $91,000. Now remember when we spoke about the $100,000 income and we took the state and federal taxes out, we were left with $77,600. This number was before setting aside any money for investments, for disposable income, or emergencies. That's your 77,600. When we deduct that from your $91,000, we are now over by $13,400. Now, not everyone goes to a church, and this course does not deal or will not touch anything with religion or politics. But because you're doing numbers, you're spending, the numbers would be warped if that was not included. Therefore, most churches will say you have to give 10% of your income. They call it tithe. That is $10,000. 10,000, 10% of $100,000 is $10,000. And then there's things called offerings. I just run in a number, threw $2,000 in there. And so we're at $12,000. So the overall shortfall before any funds were set aside for investment, disposable, or when you have issues, was 77.6. When we add it all up, we're at $25,400.
It's over 9,000!
Over and above. So if we were to add those numbers back, would have been far exceeded that. But here's the key. Remember that all we had to work with, according to the model, was $58,200. Folks, look where we landed. 113,650, and these were all reasonable numbers. And even when I backed out some of these expenses here that would not apply to everybody, we were still at $91,000. This is where you're going to see the strength of this course, because my mission will be to attempt to bring you back as close as I possibly can to $58,200 living, I won't say comfortably, but we have to do something. You know, it's a term I like to use here when I see these numbers. It's a Houston, we got the problem.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem.
And we heard this term way back when we started sending satellites, up in the sky, and they would have issues up there. They couldn't solve it. They would radar back and say, "Guess what? I got problems. What do we do?" So right now, we got serious problems to deal with, and I am going to attempt to show you how to get around it. So it's very important, once again, that you do not keep this information to yourself. Because believe it or not, a lot of folks are underwater. I spoke to a couple of friends this week, and they were sharing with me people that they knew that were making $4, $5, $6,000, $600,000, up to $1 million. And guess what? They're in debt up to their nostrils. So I invite you folks to join this group because I'm here to help as many people as I can. So once again, do not be selfish. Do tell your friends and family to check these videos out. And remember when you do to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and ring the bell, because that's the way I will know that you are watching these videos. And these videos are a huge help to you. And hopefully I can bring you back to financial solvency. So until next time, this is your host, Uncle Nell, saying keep it simple and have a great day.